reimagining cities for people. I think someone has made a lot of interesting points that I'm going to talk about. But the pace of urbanization is unprecedented in our time. At the turn of the last century, there was just 150 million people living in cities. In 2008, we crossed the 50% mark. There's now 3.3 billion of our kind living in cities. And it leads us to think about us as a different kind of subspecies. We know ourselves as Homo sapiens, the wise hominid. But I think that we've become not just wise, but we've become city dwellers, urban dwellers. So I like to think about ourselves as Homo sapiens urbanus. But with that unprecedented pace of urbanization, what seems to happen is that the city is also gathering pace and credence as a veritable driver of economic growth. The 440 cities across the world that have over 1 million people now contribute to 47% of global GDP. Here, Nairobi is home to just 10% of Kenya's population, but generates 45% of GDP. The power is in the cities. But with this immense growth comes also unprecedented consumption, but also unbridled demand for goods and services. The 440 cities across the world will also add about 1 billion people into the consumer market, wanting things. And that would lead that consumption spending to about $10 trillion by 2025. We know, for instance, that it will be in the order of magnitude of 80 billion cubic new liters of water to support all of the water and sanitation and industrial use that we want for the cities. The question that we ask is that with this great opportunity, can African cities harness the power and the promise of urbanization to create new innovation, to drive equitable socioeconomic growth, to lead us to a new sustainable future, to provide, in a sustainable way, access to the scarce natural resources, and actually create a new paradigm for living and living smart in our cities. But it seems that the direction that our cities are growing doesn't create much promise. It's contradictions. The dynamism of African cities is one of dualism. It's one of dynamism and stagnation. It's one of hope and despair. We had from Raphael's story. It's one of opportunities and challenges as well. It's one of hope and despair as well. But what seems to be interesting about the structure and the dynamic in urbanization in Africa is the fact that we have succumbed to the tyranny of the automobile. Everywhere you turn, as all the kind of creature comforts for cars, you know, the streets, the gas stations, the showrooms, and the used car sale lots that now just consume a lot of space as you walk across our cities. And what seems to happen is that the human being is not on the streets anymore. We've created all these things for people. And what seems to happen is that with these new highways, the superhighways, we've orchestrated what I call the cessation of the middle class and the wealthy class from the cities to these gated neighborhoods. That has now made things like Tattoo City, which is a completely idiotic idea, seem really sensible. And made places like Runda the places where you want to be. And annihilated a sense of community, which is really the essence, the lifeblood of existence in the city. But in many ways, if you've read Len Pritchard's work on capability traps, it makes this look like the place where you want to see all of the dysfunction, the chaos, from the breakdown in provision of essential services such as water, the places where people live and work are not decent, they're insanitary, they're very uncomfortable places to live. We generate tons of garbage that we can't collect. Our rivers have become open sewers. Our soils are poisoned. And we've created what I think is really an urban apartheid. We've created unequal cities. It's a tale of two cities. This is Runda, just across from here. And this is Kibera. This is what we've created. We've disconnected and destroyed a sense of citizenship. What is the chance that this guy up here is ever going to interact with this person unless they're maids or askaris in their homes? So the structural problematic of the urban structure is creating huge problems going forward for even how we imagine and reimagine our cities. Jane Jacobs wrote a book in 1961. And for those of you who are familiar with Rachel Carson's work, I think that Jane Jacobs' book, The Death and Life of the Great American Cities, is what is to urbanism what Rachel Carson's book was to the environmental movement. And the interesting thing is that these books were written, one in 1961, another one in 1962, by women. How I wish I lived in that great decade. What seems to happen is there's a reawakening and a quest to reimagine how we live in the cities. And the seminal work of Richard Register about eco-cities, rebuilding cities in the balance with nature, is beginning to get us to think differently about how we live and inhabit this space. These two seminal books and some other works, like Michael Berry's book, Complexity and Cities, and Jan Gale's book, Cities for People, have kind of inspired me to think about how can we live more sensibly in this space? What is the opportunity to reimagine in many interesting ways the various connections, the potential that these cities bring? And that to me is really the essence of resilience. How can we recreate and reimagine and reemerge and transform out of what we've created? There's certain rigid structural formations that we have today, but I think there's the opportunity to think more creatively about solutions that can get us out of this space. I have 4 ideas about how we might think about reimagining cities for the future. The first idea is about retaking the streets. Now, literally, we have to repossess the streets. We have to show the city fathers that these cities are for us, not for the cars. Today, this is what happens. This is Tom Mboya Street in Nairobi. We are literally fighting for space on the streets with the cars. And this was a picture that I took on a Sunday. You can imagine what happens now, rush hours, people trying to go home. People get killed on the streets. You know, there's just no space to feel like you belong in this space. I think we need to rethink. And as I say, life in the city actually happens on foot. And if we can get more of us on the streets, we will now go to the city mayors and the city fathers and claim more open spaces. The serendipitous encounters, we think about cities as the drivers of creativity and innovation. It doesn't happen you sitting in your little closet in your house. You won't imagine a thing that can change the world. It's a connectedness of ideas. It is sitting together. It is that warmth of human connectedness that actually inspires imagination. So think about things like street furniture. If you look at the scape of the street, I had a student work with me from Waterloo last year, looking at the streets of Parklands, and we discovered that we have so much space on those streets. What we've done is we've excavated all the sites and put open drainage and confined people to footpaths that are not even paved. It shows you who rules the roost here. It is the automobile. If you're on foot, tough luck. Sometimes I walk on foot and I wonder whether these guys also know that I also have a car. Because the guy in the car thinks everybody else is just some funny pedestrian. And they don't even, you want to run them out of town. The other idea is about food. I think we have astounding contradictions in our cities today. Once I walked down the street and I saw a woman, obese, with a malnourished baby strapped on her side, and I thought I was hallucinating. I just didn't understand what was going on. How can she be that big and the baby with a neck that is almost like the size of a pencil? I just couldn't understand why. But if you understand the way that we are sourcing food, food is not local anymore. It comes in through supermarkets. It is expensive. It is packed. It is becoming unaffordable. Food miles are measured in kilometers and hundreds of them, not in minutes. What I think, and this is a picture taken in Runda, just behind here. There's a lot of open space and a lot of speculative landowners. And I think what is needed is to meet these opportunities with more progressive legislation. How about temporary occupation permits that allow people, small growers from Githogoro, the slum just next to Runda, to come and farm there and then go home in the evening and create food that now comes to a supermarket that will be like, something like 40 shillings. I don't think you can find anything in our markets today that costs that much money. It is way too expensive, and people don't shop in these kinds of places. If you go to these places, in most of these poorer neighborhoods, you don't get fresh vegetables and fruits anymore. They're too expensive. These have become luxuries. The other idea I have is around water. Nairobi is another place of contradictions. Our taps are dry. In the rainy season, our streets get turned into raging rivers. Okay? And I wonder whether we understand that contradiction. You know, in the rainy season, we are getting flooded out. Traffic jams are as annoying as anything can be. I have an idea that I think about every day, and every time I flush my toilet, I know I'm just throwing away 10 to 13 liters in that one flush. 40% of domestic water consumption is used in sanitation at home. It goes down the drain. And I'm thinking about, how about cascading water quality and new innovations and creativity in plumbing and household engineering that could separate these waters, take the gray water out, recycle that, and put that through our toilets. And how about vacuum flush toilets that would use like 0.5% of the water that we use today? Garbage is a huge problem. In Nairobi alone, according to a recent report by UNEP, 2,000 kilograms of 2,000 tons of garbage is thrown out into a 30-acre dump site in a place called Dandora that has poisoned the soils. You have mercury, you have lead in the soils. It is poison, and a lot of kids there are suffering. And we burn that stuff slowly in the name of incineration. In the US, for instance, municipal solid waste generates up to 2,500 megawatts. That is more electricity than Kenya generates today. We're at about 1,700. That's only 0.3%. And it goes back to someone's point. Why is Africa so dark? So I think there are opportunities here to generate energy, and I think this is related to my last point on sanitation. And I had a chance to talk to the guys who are running this energy project. Very innovative. This is what happens in Kibera today. These toilets are baiting a river, so all that stuff goes into the river. What they've done with these energy toilets is to separate feces from urine and create this an amazing integrated sanitation value chain, creating jobs for hundreds of youth, franchising this. And all of this is going into these processing plants that is creating energy, so could create gas for the mothers at home in the kitchen. It's also fertilizer for the urban gardens that we're talking about. Talk about integrated solutions to connected problems. Now, my last point is that the cities are really the future. South Koreans are really smart people. In the 1970s, they imagined that renewal and recreation of the village could be the thing that would slow down urban-rural migration. Today, South Korea has 85% of its population living in the cities. So it means that nobody wants to live in the village. It is not our future. We are becoming Homo sapiens urbanus. It doesn't matter how much rural development you stick in these places, the future is in the cities. The question is, what is the choice that we have? Do we want to go like Tokyo? I don't want to live in a place like this. But I've seen this as the vision that Kenya 2030 has, of these flying highways and all kinds of interesting things. But I think that will be absolutely insane when we have a great city, a wonderful climate. And I think there's opportunities like this city in Tianjin in China. This is not a model. This is real. They don't take out anything. All the fresh water that comes to us from the mountains across our cities to the plains, by the time the water leaves the city gates, it is sewage. They have done great for the downstream communities. Everything is recycled. All the energy that is generated there comes from all the municipal solid waste. The water is recycled. They have urban roof catchment. They have urban gardens. They've created amazing engineering possibilities. In a city like Kolkata, for instance, 18,000 tons of fish comes from urban ponds that come from stormwater drain systems. And we're talking about the dynamism and the opportunity that we have. I had President Uhuru speak in Rwanda yesterday, and he said the only thing that Africa has, which no one else have, and on this one point I agree with him, it is the power and the capability of young minds. But we heard that 70% of the unemployed are youth. Today, as we speak, 450,000 young girls and boys are sitting their Kenya Certificate of Secondary Examination. Only 50,000 of them will go to university. About 12 years ago, they started in a cohort that had 1 million kids sitting primary education. Only 450,000. What happened to the 550,000 kids? Then we're going to add 400. So we have 950 kids who have nothing else to do. And we're sitting with these resources that we don't know what to do about. So I think we have the tools. The agency is now, but the cost of inaction is catastrophic because it will be the collapse of our civilization. And all of us will come in here and will die together because we've made the cities unlivable, we've made the cities unsustainable, but I think Africa and all the 440 emerging cities have a great opportunity to show humanity the capacity of a concerted effort to curate the world anew, to make the world the place that it's supposed to be. Peaceful, a communal place, and that's why our forefathers migrated in successive generations from the cave to the fields to the cities. From London being the first city in the world to have 1 million people, now it doesn't even figure out anywhere. We've got all these amazing cities, and China is spending $6.5 trillion every day in urban renewal because they have seen the experiment up close that cities are absolutely transformative in terms of moving 200 million people out of poverty in the shortest time ever on the planet. And it is because of the power of the cities. Thank you very much.